Rory, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well. Well, first of all, I appreciate your time and looking forward to our chat today. I've been following your content for quite some time. I actually took a demo of your tool, Trumpet, which I'm sure you'll be able to explain what it is in a couple of moments. And I demoed it and I trialed it. So familiar with your service and the product you do, but also very familiar with the content that you post. Um, how I like to start these conversations. So again, this isn't an interview; it's more of a chat slash maybe we can call it a podcast. We'll see where this series go. But you're the last in the series of four founders and CEOs that I've been speaking with over the last month. The first was Samir from Sales Motion. The second was Matteo, who runs a fractional sales business out of Italy. The third one was Sam Jacobs from Pavilion, who I know you know, and then you're the last. So save the best to last, as they say.
Very kind of you.
But just to sort of let people know who are listening in, the purpose of these conversations is to really help founders, CEOs of startups with content posting, right? So I'm trying to speak to people who are successful and have been successful, and how you define success is probably for a different day. But it's really about how have you built an audience and how have you used that audience to progress your business? And hopefully we can hear some tips and tricks from you today. Rory, how like to start these quick chats and conversations is just to share what I like about your content so people get some context. What I like about your content is I like how structured you are with the templates that you use and how consistent you are with your templates. For me, they're really easy to read, really easy to understand, and I think you offer a lot of advice and tips which are super relevant to your audience. And what I've noticed is that that allows you then to subtly talk about your product without pushing and trying to talk about how fantastic it is. I think you weave that in quite naturally and quite well. So just wanted to start with that.
Again, you're being super kind today, but yeah, thank you.
So for the people who are tuning in and listening in, could you introduce yourself, your company, and sort of what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So Rory, co-founder, CEO of a company called Trumpet. We are not software for musicians, quite the opposite. It's software for revenue teams, in particular sales and CS. I guess kind of starting with the problem we've all faced, if you're a seller or you work in a commercial team, just how complex it is, prospecting, working with clients, getting them from I'm interested to deal signed to onboarded. Lots of stakeholders involved, lots of back and forth, different links, content, assets, demo recordings, proposals, security docs, like the list goes on. There is so much that happens, and we help to centralize that and make it much more seamless for everyone involved with this concept of a digital sales room or a collaborative workspace. So one link has all of that information and helps people get to yes or no quicker.
Brilliant. Do you specialize in a certain company size, or where have you found your niche in ICP? Just on that tool.
Yeah, we're pretty transparent in terms of access, pricing. So a lot of true SMBs can get started today. They can self-serve, but most of our customer base is more kind of mid-market, like 200 to sort of 3,000 employees. And we do also work with enterprise, and that's an increasing focus of ours.
Brilliant. Yeah, from what I tested and tried, it was a really cool product. So excited to see where it goes.
Same.
So first question that I always open up with is, why do you post content on LinkedIn?
I think there's two sides to it. For us, we know our audience lives there, and salespeople in particular, very active and present on LinkedIn. So I think being present where your community, your audience, your customers are, is whether that's in-person events, whether it's Twitter, whether it's LinkedIn, which it is for us. I think that was always high on our agenda, was to be present. But I think also to just share what's worked for us. We didn't want to just be like another B2B SaaS platform. We wanted to be or create a little bit more of a brand, like an educational brand around what we're building as well. So I've always thought that that was important, like sharing the things that I wish I'd been taught in, the years selling software, all those little tidbits, those tricks, those things that, just seem so obvious when you're showing them, but, it's otherwise an unknown. So, yeah, I think being able to share all the trials, tribulations, battle scars that we've got, but also then being present and learning is the other side to it. Actually, like whilst we're sharing content and engaging with our audience, I think it's important that, we put our hands up and we don't know everything. We're equally like spending time on there to learn and kind of be part of the ecosystem.
So it sounds like there was one of the drivers was like, because you mentioned about like being open and like being sharing that you don't know everything. So like how important was and is the essence of transparency for you as you start to build your product? Like, is that something that you've, as a leader in the business, decided to say, hey, like this is one of our values and this is what we want to do, or like does this naturally happen?
A little bit of both. I think you see, especially on Twitter, it's like build in public commotion. And it's like you have to go all in or you're not allowed to do it. And I think it's kind of silly. Like there's a nice in between. Like we don't feel that we need to share everything and anything at Trumpet. But I think especially in the early days, people are excited following a journey, seeing, the small wins, those new hires, the awards that you get, the publication, whatever it is that you're involved in. I think sharing the journey, the stories is inspiring for other founders and also people that want to join the company. Joining a startup, like it's already risky. And then if they look at the company online, there's just a website and there's nothing else. It's kind of hard. There's not much to go on. But if they can see that you're pretty active, you share a lot, and there's information that they can digest, that's only useful for them. But yeah, I think we've always tried to focus more so on the kind of value added content to our network rather than his Trumpet is everything we do. That just kind of comes part and part, like through the gaps, I think.
You no, great points. You ran an event or a session with Pavilion probably in July by this stage, but it was all about the B2B journey and how it's changed. And I think you just gone back to something you raised there is when a buyer, and I don't know the stats, and I'm probably wrong with these numbers, but 80% of buyers have, in terms of the research and education that they've done on the company, they're already so far ahead in the sales cycle. And one part of that is looking at the founder, looking at their content. What are they talking about? How are they engaging with people? Is that something that you're seeing as well when you're speaking to people or your prospects?
For sure. I think in most spaces, when there's multiple vendors, you get to a point of what we call feature parity. Most tools do pretty much the same thing. Most buyers don't want to go and look at more than 3 vendors, really, because it means 2, 3, 4 calls with each of them, which is a time sink on their day job. So if you can make it easy for them to be top of mind when that pain becomes a true problem and they've got to go and solve it, so you're the immediate go-to, they remember, oh yeah, those guys, they help with HR, they help with security. You do that by always being present in their social channels, in their communities. And that doesn't mean like heavy pitching, we've got this feature, we've got that feature, we're the best, everyone else sucks. That doesn't work. People don't like that. People don't like being sold to. But if you're helping them within their role, within their domain, within their industry, and you're able to also lightly educate them on, by the way, this is what we do, then it's a much better approach, and that's what we've seen. So again, it comes down to that presence piece. So when buyers are in the market, because another great stat, only 5% of buyers are ever in the market at one time, it's tiny. How do you make sure that you're top of mind when they decide to go to Google and enter X solution?
Amazing. Yeah, it makes complete sense, and I think everybody else who I've spoken with has said the same. So really, really interesting. Just in terms of your journey, right? So you've just under 33,000 followers as of 5 minutes before this call. But can you describe like your journey with content posted? So you mentioned there around when you started with Trumpet, it was something that you were thinking about, and how could you share and educate and talk to your audience, right? But like, where did you start from? How did you start? And like, Could you maybe talk about the evolution to where you are today?
Sure. So one thing comes with the name of the company, Trumpet. It's about standing out from the crowd. So when we were thinking about like the brand and how we wanted to position ourselves, we didn't want to be another boring B2B SaaS company, and we wanted to do things slightly differently. My co-founders, big advocate for a lot of B2C brands, and we wanted to bring a little bit of B2C to the world of B2B. So that means doing things differently, not following the typical B2B SaaS marketing playbook, experimenting, having fun, resonating with people, kind of doing it at a human level. So we always knew that was the approach at a company level. And there's Chili Piper did a great job. Gong have obviously done an amazing job. There's a lot of cool companies out there that you can look to and see how they've executed. And they've broken that rule book and they've led their own path and done great things with it. So, looking for inspiration is one thing. I think looking within your world, it doesn't have to be your category, but within your world, what are other companies you can learn from? You don't need to start from scratch. I think a lot of people think when you're building that, you do, let alone like your business idea, but it's tough enough. So I would say like let those who've got bigger teams, bigger budgets do the research and the thinking for you to a certain degree until you've then got that team around you. So that was the focus. And for us, we did the analysis, like how are we going to be able to get in front of our audience, like what channels. And when you're very small, you have such limited resources and such limited time, you can't do everything all at once. We tried to do TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and we eventually just put like most of them aside and just focus on one or two now because we're still pretty small. And year one of building the company, we had a wait list. It was all creative FOMO. People didn't know 100% what Trumpet was, and we were trying to create this excitement. And you can't just sit on your hands and be like, oh, once we launch, then we start marketing and then we start posting on socials. For us, it was, well, let's create the buzz now. And we wanted to basically kind of build this like, it's not even thought leadership, but we just wanted to give back to the world that we were in with things that we'd learned. And You Build a Habit in 30 Days, Atomic Habits, great book. Everyone should read it. And there was no goal, like I want to get to X thousand followers, or we want to generate this many impressions or this many leads. It was just be consistent, and over time it will compound. Those two C's are the things that we like preach time and time again, is ignore the likes, ignore the impressions, because LinkedIn changes it every other day. So who really cares? Like if you've got a really tight-knit community, people are finding your content useful, that's all you should care about. The benefits that come out of that will kind of lead to themselves. So yeah, there was no targeted like numerical goal with posting on LinkedIn. It was just start, see what works, and just be consistent. And fortunately, we have been able to maintain that since day one of launching.
Yeah, I'm happy you mentioned that, and you're the fourth out of the four founders who I spoke with. Is like the number one is consistency and not worrying about the metrics and the numbers especially at the start. It's just like getting into the routine and building that habit, as you say, of creating content and posting content and then engaging with content. So delighted to hear that. So just like with all successes, and I'm sure you're well used to overcoming obstacles, like is there any like challenges that you've faced with LinkedIn content posting, and like maybe how have you thought about them or approached them? Does any come to mind?
I think with any social channel, the more time you spend on it, the more you start to see what other people are doing. Again, this is, you see their results, their engagement, you think, oh, how have they done better than me? And I think it's natural to get a little bit too deep into that. Nothing is gained from it. Again, it goes back to LinkedIn changes stuff all the time. Some posts take off, some don't. And I think as long as you can maintain that thought, you're going to have a great time, because otherwise you spend too much time chasing meaningless numbers. I think the thing that I'd recommend is probably the most difficult is to find your voice, or find your style, like your type of posting, your type of content, whether it's educational, whether it's like learnings, whether it's stories, whether it's videos. There's so many different ways of communicating, and there's so many different types, formats, and styles of content. And consistency isn't just about posting every single day. It's also how and why you post. I think that's actually very difficult to do. You look at someone like Charlotte Johnson, she's an IC at sales. She's always been supernatural with how she does it. Doesn't have to post all the time. You can always, when you read one of her posts, you know it's her. Same with Nate Nasrella, amazing author now of a book, which I'd recommend everyone reading. And you know, when you read his posts, you know it's Nate's. Very, very well written, but it's just, it is him. And I think that's quite difficult to achieve. But being too conscious of that, putting too much pressure on yourself, then leads to indecision. Should I, shouldn't I post this? To be honest, like, there's so much content, people read it and move on and spend 10 seconds kind of scanning it. The more overthinking you do, the less posting you're going to do, which then leads to the drop in consistency.
Beautifully explained. I think, yeah, you can get into that whirlwind of overthinking things. And even like for me doing these videos and speaking to founders, like I could have spent weeks finding the right technology and speaker and lighting, and I just decided to record and get it out there with the purpose of founders trying to get on the same level of and the same wavelength of founders who are busy and they're, you know, prioritizing product and they have other things to focus on, but they really, really need to emphasize the importance of content and building that into your go-to-market.
Agreed.
So in terms of like just moving on to like the impact, and I think you've discussed this on some of your posts, and there's one event that I remember very clearly. You and the other leaders in your business posted about the new advisory board that you built, and I think all the advisors then also posted and reshared, and it was everywhere. And I remember when it was either a co-founder or someone on your leadership team very transparently sort of talked about the impact that that campaign had on your business in terms of lead gen, pipeline, impressions, and I forget the numbers, but he basically said, like, if you were to go to a marketing agency and say, hey, I want these impressions in terms of like reach and audience, like it will cost a lot of money, right? So I can see that that's obviously one impact that you had, or that was a strong impact for your business. Is there any other tangible benefits that content posting has brought you and your business, or is there one win that comes to mind and say, you know, if I didn't post that, I wouldn't have been in this position? And then that comes to mind.
I think a handful, if helpful. First, investment. It's led to us being invested in both times, being discovered for multiple rounds. Investors are pretty present on socials. You know, they like to follow the buzz and see what others are engaged with. So that's one piece. It's definitely built trust in us as a company from a brand perspective, domain expertise, and that's led to partnerships and integrations. In our world, like, being part of the ecosystem is incredibly important. So, you know, when bigger companies look at us, if we didn't have all this content and this presence, they would probably think, who are these guys? But because of the compounding effect of everything we've done from a company page perspective, leadership, our individual accounts perspective, the team, our advisors, our investors, we have, you know, it's the one thing I'm super proud of, and I think it's a humble brag, and apologies to do this, but it's the one thing we've done really, really well, and it has paid off. You know, we've had amazing partnerships with some amazing companies that we look up to, and it's because they've seen our activity, and basically they think we're bigger than we are. And that's kind of, I always think, like, as a startup, everything is against you. Like, you are not meant to grow, you're not meant to succeed, you're up against incumbents, you're up against the status quo, like all these different things. So you have to sometimes fake it till you make it. You got to make out that you are bigger than you actually are. And LinkedIn's free, posting is free. Why would you not capitalize on that opportunity? So that's led to, yeah, investment, integrations, and partnerships. The other one is organic referrals. People have messaged and said, like, hey, I'm introducing you to Stephen, and I want to introduce you to Rory and Trumpet team. I love what they're doing. I see them everywhere. You guys mentioned you're looking at digital sales rooms. You should check these guys out. We didn't ask for it. It's because we're always present. And the last one is customers. We have people reach out direct and saying, I've been following your content for a while. I need to now take a look. I can't ignore it any longer. It came up the other day in a conversation internally. Instantly, you guys came to mind. And yeah, I think it's 3 years now of posting. It's sort of paying off. It takes time. It takes time. It doesn't mean that we got customers day one when we launched. We still have to scrappily, hustle for those first invoices. But I think we're definitely starting to reap the rewards of those efforts.
Yeah, one thing I've learned is you need to have a long-term lens and focus. It's not immediate results that you're going to get after a month of posting. And I think I have worked with some founders underneath my my business, SBJ Consulting, where they do it for a few weeks and they say, Stephen, haven't got anything yet. And I'm trying to change that mindset in terms of like a long-term strategy and a long-term play. But it sounds like you've got more money, more customers, more partnerships just from content. So brilliant. Are you tracking in terms of like your source buy, or like do you have metrics in place to say, source on LinkedIn?
I'd say, don't quote me exactly on this, but at least 70% of our inbound leads are from LinkedIn. And we get a good amount of inbound, and that is driven from LinkedIn. So, I think, I think also marketing can get too, in the early stages, you can become a little bit too number focused on attribution within marketing. I think just knowing that making noise, I keep saying the word presence, but like being present is the most impactful thing you can do in the early days, because it will compound. But it does take time. It really does take time. Founders saying that I've been doing it for a few weeks and it's not really yielded many results. I had tumbleweed. I had friends messaging me being like, what is this post? Who do you think you are posting on LinkedIn? Blah, 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 blah. Those friends now come to me for advice on all sorts of things, like can I speak at their SKO and whatever. So, as long as you're focused on value-added content within your domain, within your industry, and I know value-added content sounds like such a fluffy term, as long as it's useful, it's just like taking something that worked for you when you were a seller, or helped you get promotional, or like helped your team improve their efficiency, and you're able to break it down, tell the story, like make it actionable. Someone out there is going to find it useful. And as long as you keep doing that, people are like, well, where do you come up with the ideas? And it's like, well, if you come from this world, I spent 7 years as a seller. I've got 7 years of knowledge. It doesn't mean it's all useful, but like there are insights there that can be that other people might not have had access to. So just got to keep at it.
Brilliant. The seventh wonder of the world is compound interest. So it's definitely worthwhile. Just coming to the end, and I suppose you've given a lot of advice and great golden nuggets throughout this, and amazing sound bites. But is there 3 to 5 tips that you can offer, like in terms of like how do you go about writing your content, posting it, scheduling it, engaging? Do you block time? Just things like that. Have you top tips that you can think of?
I am a very organized, disorganized person. So what I mean by that is I don't have like super well scripted processes for doing things. I don't use any tools for posting. I don't have like loads of templates saved or anything. You would think after 3 years I probably should have, and to be honest, I'm looking back, I wish I had. Mine's kind of like the rough and ready approach. So I use the Notes app on an Apple iPhone or Mac, because the two sync up, so it's easy for me. So when I'm out and about, I have an idea, I just write down the idea. And when I say write down the idea, I don't write down the post. I'll just put a note, which is, for example, I might suddenly think about indecision being a big deal killer. People just can't get to yes or can't get to no, so they end up just ghosting us. It happens all the time. I'll just be out and about thinking that when it impacted the deal I worked on. So I write down that note: indecision killed X deal. When I go to my laptop, I then basically flesh it out, first draft, grab a coffee, come back and finalize it and post it and hope for the best. Just if it works, it works. The process that I recommend, though, is going back to that book, Atomic Habits, Building the Habits. I've been doing it every single day. It's the first thing I do when I get into the office. Just kind of sit down, have my morning coffee, look at my notes, scan LinkedIn, kind of browse the morning news, and I'll just draft a post and just tweak it and then put it out into the world. So that's my habit every single day without failure. So the thing I wish I'd done, which I think would be useful, is like having Notion or similar to better organize those ideas and then also save other posts for inspiration. The head of Benelux at Personio, Koen Stan, he's got a great Notion template, what do you call it, resource that he'll share with anyone, which has loads of sales leaders posts. And it's not looking for like copy or anything like that. It's just everyone is full of great information. It might trigger something you've worked on, you know, a simple job. So it's more for like inspiration. I think that's a great way to go about it, because LinkedIn doesn't do a very good job of saving posts. It's very difficult to find when you save them all. But yeah, some of those, yeah, there's other great people posting brilliant content. So kind of following your own community, I think it's important for you to get inspiration too.
I'm happy you mentioned that. So how these conversations started is I reviewed your profile and the three other gentlemen who I mentioned, and I have a Notion document that I share with all the founders that I work with, and it breaks down all your posts, how you do it, the templates that you follow, tips and tricks. So if anybody's listening to this and they want a copy of that Notion document, happy to share it. And it's similar, I give it out and with the purpose of founders getting value and hopefully just starting to implement their content strategy as part of their go-to-market. Rory, I think we'll leave it at that. I think a lot of fantastic pieces of information there, very, very valuable. I love learning for my own use as well, so there's a bit of a selfish reason for these calls, but fantastic to speak to you, Rory, and I look forward to continuing your journey on LinkedIn.
Likewise, thanks for having me on. Cheers.
Cheers, Rory.